All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining in today. My name is Zanzi, and I am the host of the Showcase AMA series here on the Polygon Discord. Today, we got a very special guest coming in from the Pocket Network. His name's Michael. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Sansi. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to have you here. So I always like to kick things off, doing some introductions and hearing about your backstory. So, why don't you tell us a bit more about yourself, what you were doing before crypto, and what got you into the space?
Yeah, my name's Michael O'Rourke. I live in Tampa Bay, Florida, and originally from the Caribbean and the Dominican Republic, but raised for the most part here in Tampa. My background's a bit winding. Was international studies major in school. I wanted to be a diplomat. Um, Realized I didn't really want to work for the government and actually discovered iOS development before I graduated, and was an iOS developer for about 3 years before I dove into some smart contract development on Ethereum in late 2016. But I had originally discovered Bitcoin back when the space was Bitcoin, not blockchain, in 2013 after reading a Wired article, and ended up on the subreddit, ended up reading the white paper, and just have gone deeper into the space ever since then, to be completely honest. And yeah, no, here we are. Yeah, almost 10 years later, having seen the space change so much, it's pretty remarkable. So
Fantastic. So, what brought you to being a part of Pocket then?
yeah, in late 2016, I was working at a startup with some friends and now co-founders, and we started. This is shortly after the DAO hack on Ethereum, actually, and we started just playing around with ideas. We wanted to go work on our own thing together, and the first idea that we had was something called Telcoin, which I think like the name exists today. But the idea was to tokenize your cell phone data. We had this whole idea to incentivize people to potentially even build their own 5G cell towers, and kind of coordinated through this MVNO, which is um, mobile virtual network operator here in the US, where you basically create a telecom company around it. And through that process, we realized we were a bit early with that, and realized that this idea of um, a decentralized RPC is probably more foundational and more important to just Web3 and crypto more generally. So really, as 2017 rolled along, we saw how important having a reliable RPC was to Ethereum, and uh, uh, and the fact that there was only one or two options at the time, where most of the traffic was going through. We kind of saw that this was going to become an important potential bottleneck in the future. And additionally, we always felt that there would be likely tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of blockchains in the future, which, in my opinion, I think Polygon tends to agree with the direction you guys are headed with some of the stuff that you guys are building. And so we started thinking about what a protocol would look like that can provide uh, a credibly neutral, reliable, and censorship-resistant RPC for Web3. And since then, this has really been our life since then, since about late 2016, early 2017, and we have a long ways to go, but I think we've made some serious progress over these 6 years or so.
Yeah, fantastic. And your role on the project, you're CEO and founder, correct?
Yeah, I'm CEO of Pocket Network Inc., the company that built Pocket Network, and there's three other co-founders as well. That the four of us really started from day one. And yeah, just I'm also a voter in the Pocket DAO, one of over 40, which is pretty cool to see. And I am the CEO of Pocket Networking, the company itself.
Fantastic. Yeah, we'll definitely have to talk more about the DAO. But before we do that, do you want to just like kind of provide like an explanation as to what Pocket is, kind of like an elevator pitch or a more in depth like overview of how it all works?
Yeah, so Pocket is a middleware protocol. It really sits in between the application that you're using. So that could be, Uniswap or DeFi Kingdoms or any other, any bridge or anything like that, and the blockchain that that application is trying to communicate with. And fundamentally, what Pocket does is load your web page. So when you go to a wallet or anything like that, and you see your balance load on your wallet, Pocket is a provider, a service provider that passes that data over to your application. And what we've done is instead of have a centralized company running the full nodes to provide that data, we've bootstrapped a network of thousands of independent node operators to located all around the world to effectively provide that data for the end user. So it's kind of more engineering parlance. We're kind of a very thin proxy that just passes data. Let's say you're doing a balance on your MetaMask, for example. You make that request on your browser, it goes through Pocket, it hits an Ethereum full node, and then goes back through Pocket and hits your browser again. And all that happens in about anywhere between 100 to 200 to 300 milliseconds, basically. So it's a very thin middleware layer that acts as an infrastructure coordinator.
Okay, cool. And how long have you guys been live for?
Yeah, so we just recently turned 2 years old. Um, for context, out here on July 28th, actually, is when we turned, was our 2-year birthday. And for context, Pocket is its own blockchain. Some of the history behind building Pocket, if you actually look at our GitHub, you'll see my first commits in 2017 on Solidity, or with Solidity, actually with the intention of building Pocket on Ethereum as a set of smart contracts. But through that kind of iteration and evolution, we ended up deciding to build our own blockchain. And it took about 3.5, 4 years to end up launching that blockchain. And for further context, we are built on Tendermint, so we're kind of closer to the Cosmos ecosystem in this respect. And yeah, we launched about 2 years ago. I'd say that we've gone through a couple phases of the protocol itself. The first year was really just fixing stuff, whether on the consensus side or the quality of service side. Like for example, the latency used to be upwards of a second and a half to receive a request. So imagine your web page, loading in a second and a half. That's pretty slow. And today we're closer to 100 to 200 milliseconds, which is a really big deal for us when you're kind of sending data across the internet, right? And once we really fixed everything last summer, that's when we really started growing, and we went from about 5 million requests a day last July, so a little bit over a year ago, to May, hitting our first billion requests over the course of 24 hours, which is a pretty big deal for us. And being able to prove that, a decentralized network of node operators can provide data on par or even sometimes faster than centralized entities. So it's something that we're extremely proud of.
Yeah, those are some pretty impressive milestones, and happy belated birthday. Um,
Thanks.
so, what would you say is like kind of like the Pocket Network's philosophy?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I was first raising money for Pocket, lots of investors would ask me, what's your revenue model? I'd be like, that's a great question. And I'd go on and explain how we're not kind of a traditional business. We are kind of a corporation. We're based out of the U.S., at least incorporated in the U.S., but we're not really building a traditional business. So that doesn't mean that Pocket can't be sustainable, that Pocket Network Inc. can't be sustainable, but fundamentally, I view us as really building a country, more akin to building a country. If you actually draw a triangle between religion, corporations, and countries, I believe blockchains sit right in the middle, actually. And that's really what I think all of us, building Polygon included, are building these real human coordination mechanisms. In the end, the fact that we can get people from around the world, regardless of who you are, where you're from, what your background is, race, creed, religion, doesn't matter, to agree on something, whether that's the state of the Polygon blockchain or the state of the Pocket blockchain or the state of Bitcoin, is actually a pretty remarkable feat given today's environment. And we're just at the very, very early stages of really defining what this means to kind of build these systems on the internet, right, at a global scale. So really, what I view Pocket as is more like what I'm defining as a supranational entity. Now, there's companies that work underneath it or work for it, right, like Pocket Network Inc. But it's really uh, uh, a group or a collaboration of lots of different groups of people and entities really participating for this, for the Pocket Network Protocol, or in Polygon's case, for Polygon. And I view us all kind of within that similar vein, if you will.
Okay, fantastic. So, what do you see in the pipeline for Pocket Network in the next 12 months or so?
Yeah, we're releasing some pretty big updates to our portal, which I'm very, very excited for. I'm hoping that we are able to allow others to be able to run their own portals. And for context, if you're a developer, the portal is where you go to, um, in 3 clicks, you get an endpoint and you can start building. So, for example, when you put your RPC URL in MetaMask, that's what our portal provides for the end user, whether you're browsing Web3 or a developer building an application. So that's a really big deal for us. We're also building V1. We launched our alpha prototype a few months ago, and the team is continuing to make progress on V1. That's extremely exciting for us because that's really what's going to allow Pocket to scale to, I think, hundreds of thousands and millions and eventually billions of Web3 users, and being able to support all that data and traffic. And in the more short to medium term, we're really excited to be launching more blockchains. I think that, for example, Polygon is doing is I think we're extremely aligned as into how we see the future, particularly with Edge and SuperNets. And I fully anticipate us being able to support you guys with everything that everyone is building within your ecosystem. So for us, you can kind of view us as almost like a Uniswap for node infrastructure in some ways.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's super exciting. Um, so I'm wondering if, like, perhaps you'd want to screen share and maybe like provide us with a bit of visual aid um, to help us get a better understanding of Pocket Network.
Yeah. If you give me just a couple minutes here to pull it up, um, I can absolutely go ahead and do that.
Sounds good. I was actually messing around with it last night. Set up my own. I guess I got my own RPC through Pocket Network, and yeah, I definitely got tons of questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just give me a couple minutes here, and I'll be happy to pull it up. But
Yeah,
in the meantime, it makes it pretty easy for people to be able to log in and grab an endpoint.
yeah. So I do have several links in the chat, including the website if anyone wants to open it up themselves and check it out. And also, if you have any questions for Michael, make sure to drop them in the text channel, or you can also drop them in the voice chat text channel, and I'll read them out to him. It's pretty exciting. You guys already support over 50 different networks, and it looks like you're not limited to just like EVM networks. You also got Solana and Algorand and a ton of other networks. So yeah, you guys have built something truly incredible.
Yeah, that's what's nice about it being a proxy. We don't really we're pretty agnostic uh, to what the underlying technology is, or the interface, as we call it. And what that means is um, we can literally support almost anything. And that's actually been quite nice for us to be able to scale quite quickly to different types of blockchains and that sort of thing. So um, it's quite nice. It's actually really quite nice for us. All right, I've almost got this pulled up, so appreciate the patience while I get this up. And there we go. But yeah. So basically, we can support, like you said, Solana or Bitcoin or really any chain related to. Really, Pocket can support any um, open source database or interface, believe it or not. So I could see a future where people are, um, even running, machine learning models on Pocket through some open databases for this sort of thing as well, which is quite interesting. All right, I've got this pulled up.
Yeah, that would be a really exciting use case to see being explored.
Yeah, so almost got this. Okay, great, got this pulled up now. Sorry, and thank you for the patience. So let me share my screen here, and we should be good to go. Fantastic. Are you guys seeing my screen?
Yep, looks high quality, high definition.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. So yeah, this is kind of there's really two main um, screens for developers. This is kind of like the main network overview. In many ways, this acts as a bit of a block explorer for Pocket for the applications. So it tells you about the nodes, tells you about the success rate. Here, you can see that we've done almost 6 billion requests in the last week or so. And this is kind of like a network overview version of it. You also get the latest block information. Some interesting tidbits on Pocket. You'll see here the latest block was produced in about 20 minutes. Usually we have 15-minute block times, which is actually quite different than what you would expect for most blockchains. We are not a blockchain that's meant to be transactional in kind of the traditional sense. People buy and stake and use Poct as nodes or applications specifically to access the network, and less so to kind of transact in Poct. So this gives us the flexibility to allow a lot of the work that gets done kind of off chain, and allows us to really measure that work with in kind of a scalable fashion. So it's something that we're that's quite different from what you might expect from from a traditional blockchain, as a heads up. And then you can see here the available networks that we support. As you can see, we've got 7 pages of available networks. We're going upwards to 50 networks that we support. We recently launched Clayton, if you're familiar with Clayton, but we're aiming to get to 100 chains before the end of the year, actually. So you can see here we get Polymatic, Arrival, Mumbai, and hopefully soon different types of supernets as well. So it's kind of the overview page, right? And you can see the work that we're doing here on that. If I go to one of these apps here, um, you can see that this is a public Avalanche um, endpoint, and this is kind of the developer view, right? So this is the endpoint. This is literally what they go ahead and put in their applications themselves. You can see the success rate here of those RPC requests. We have a pretty high success rate because when something fails, whether it's a node that's out of sync or goes offline, because there's thousands of nodes within the Pocket network, what happens is that those requests get repeated to the next node in line, basically. So you have really strong guarantees on the data that you're receiving as a developer. Here we see the average latency for this endpoint, and you can see that it's not being used too much. You can see that it's about 1% of its weekly usage, and we've done about 175,000 requests in the last hour or so. So what's interesting about Pocket is that the protocol rate limits on an hourly basis. A session is made up of 4 blocks within the Pocket network, and each of those blocks are roughly 15 minutes. And what an app does is use the service throughout that session, and it effectively gets reset at the end of the hour on the hour. And here you can see the app addresses that are staked for this application, and you can see some different data on the users that are accessing this endpoint. So that's kind of the main stuff on the portal itself. We've got some nice app community or app security features. Whether you need secret keys, you can approve chains, you can approve different URLs, basically, or contracts or methods as a developer, which is pretty cool. And also, what's really cool, I think, is that the portal itself is open source. So people can go ahead and actually potentially build their own version of this without necessarily running all of the infrastructure behind it. And we've also got notifications, kind of standard stuff. The goal here was to make it as native and natural for developers as possible, to be able to bootstrap the network and have them test their service with Pocket. So that's really the main overview here of the portal. And I believe if you go to portal.pocket.network, you can see the main login for here. So you get started and you go ahead and log in, and here you go. So that's the main product that we are really focused on. And in the near future, you'll be able to, for example, stake your own POCT. You'll be able to pay for POCT through our own payment gateways and pay for the service itself at the end of it. So it's something we're really excited for, and we've received a lot of amazing feedback from our users in the community related to this.
Fantastic. So what do you see as your competitive edge? Like, what helps you stand out from your competitors?
Yeah, so Pocket has a couple key differences from a traditional kind of RPC service provider. If I'm a centralized RPC provider, I generally need to spin up my nodes in multiple regions, and usually I'll have them spun up in, say, US East, US West, maybe EU, and maybe Asia or Singapore, as an example. What's interesting about Pocket is that we are operating 16 gateways around the world right now. And as a result, we've got actually greater coverage where our nodes tend to concentrate around. And what that does is actually create, in many cases, a faster or more reliable service for the end user. Because, for example, if I am in Germany and the closest gateway might be in Ireland, for example, in a traditional situation, we have a gateway that's operating in Frankfurt, for example. So I'm actually much closer, and I actually end up receiving much faster data, because in the end, what causes latency is really the speed of data. So that's one vector of where Pocket I think shines. And an interesting note there is that in V1, uh, it's looking very likely that we move away from this gateway model and we move towards something that we're calling geozones. So part of the metadata of staking as a node in the future will be, hey, what's my region in the world that I am? So if I'm a node runner in Sao Paulo, Brazil, well, the protocol will naturally connect me to nodes that are within my region, which is something we're extremely excited about, which will continue, which will actually improve the quality of service. So that's one piece. The other piece is just the fact that we have so much redundancy with the network of nodes, um, particularly when it comes to really any blockchain where they may have trouble syncing, they may shut off for whatever reason. Because there is so much redundancy within the network, it's practically impossible for you not to receive data at some point or another. And we have an incredibly diverse set of node runners across many different um, types of cloud providers, bare metal providers, and hardware providers. We even have people running nodes in their home. So if Amazon US East goes out, Pocket keeps operating. We've got an extremely distributed set of node runners at this point, and I'd say we're well into the dozens, if not over 100 of different types of setups within the network itself, which means that we're pretty difficult to take down at this point. So when it comes to kind of reliability and consistency of data, we really shine there as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's humongous. Really big competitive edge, really key, like differentiating points. One thing
Yeah,
I want to.
it, oh,
Oh, sorry, it's you.
apologies. Yeah, I was just going to add. Sorry for interrupting. I was just going to add another point there, and it's interesting because it's a result of having a decentralized supply side that we're actually able to provide the service, right? So it's not use Pocket because it's centralized, but it's by virtue of having a supply side of the network that is truly unique and decentralized. Is how we're able to provide those kinds of guarantees, which I think is pretty interesting.
Yeah, one thing I want to jump into a bit more is running a node. So you mentioned like users can run their own nodes, and I'm wondering like what are the requirements to do so, and how do users benefit from running a node?
Yeah, a Pocket node is actually really easy to run now. We just had a recent innovation built by one of our community members, the Thunderhead folks. Shout out to them, alongside the Pocket Fund folks as well. But basically, a light client. They basically built the light client of Pocket, and where I'll give you an example where you might have been able to run 2 to 4 Pocket nodes in kind of a normal, standard, kind of average um, server box on Amazon. Now it's looking like you can run anywhere between 50 and potentially even 150 Pocket nodes on one single box. So in terms of like raw requirements, they're pretty lightweight, right? The real complexity comes with running the full nodes themselves and how many of those full nodes you want to run and for what chains, right? Running Polygon mainnet is one thing, but running the top 10 blockchains on Pocket starts to get a little bit more difficult. So it's been really interesting to see the different types of guides and tooling that have kind of followed kind of our growth to kind of keep up with it. So I think what we'll see is on the edges as we grow, as we continue to go pretty quickly, um, the complexity will increase, but the tooling and the support to be able to run many chains, for example, will continue to improve and kind of lag a little bit behind it. So um, when it comes to running a node, right, I'd say we've got some pretty good docs um, and some pretty good guides, actually, even video guides. I think another community member, for example, wrote the Zero to Node guide, which I think many people have used at this point. So pretty sure you can get started in running up, spinning up a Pocket node by itself in probably less than an hour at this point, following one of these guides with relatively little experience.
And you mentioned there's a pocket token, so would you have to like stake pocket tokens, and then is there also like an opportunity to earn them? How does that all work, or how is the token utilized?
Yeah. So the pocket token on the node side, you need to stake 15,000 POCT to have the rights to do work within the network as a node, right? And that's really the collateral that the protocol asks for to keep you honest. If you, for example, lie on the consensus level or lie on the relay level, for example. So um, that's the main purpose for the supply side of the network to want to use the network or to want to use the token. And by serving requests from applications, you actually earn POCT for providing that service. And it's a static amount of POCT. So um, let's say it's 1 POCT per relay. That's not the case today, but as an example, and I do 100 relays within the network for an application, I actually end up earning um, a percentage of that POCT on a static basis to for that work that I did, right? And that's really important because and a bit different from what you might see from most blockchains because the rewards are actually based on the usage of the network and how many requests are going through, rather than a static block reward that you might see in something like Bitcoin or Ethereum in this respect.
Okay, cool. That makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned something about a DAO. So I'm wondering how that works within your ecosystem, and like what kind of proposals are people voting on?
Yeah, so we designed Pocket to be effectively an opt-in democracy from day one. And what I mean by that is no matter how much POCT you have, you actually have to go through, let's call it a citizenship process for the network by either running nodes or being an application or participating in the community. And what we've done is gamified it through something called the Pocket Arcade. So you basically complete quests within the arcade that are difficult to Sybil attack. And what I mean by Sybil attack is, take a script and, pretend to be, 1,000 people to complete some task. These are all things that are, very, very difficult to Sybil attack. Might require like a pull request or building a tool or something like that. And on top of that, you need to also do some verification with a picture and this sort of thing to make sure that everyone who's participating in the governance is human and has been um, vetted by other voters effectively. So you basically kind of prove your knowledge of the network to claim a vote. And anyone can do this regardless of how many tokens you have. And we launched with 5 kind of inaugural voters. And since then, we've had more than 40, almost 50 people, I believe, claim their votes since then, which is really cool to see, actually. And really, what the Pocket DAO decides on are 3 things. They decide on the monetary policy for the network. Pocket is a Tendermint chain, and it's heavily parameterized with lots of kind of economic knobs that is very much governed by the DAO. The DAO also governs the treasury, so 10% of all rewards go to this DAO treasury that is governed by these voters, right? I believe this treasury has over 100 million POCT today, and we're definitely looking for more efficient ways to distribute it. But the fact that we've seen lots of different types of proposals to ask for grants from the Treasury pass and succeed is something that I think is really cool to see. And the third thing that the Pocket DAO really governs are protocol upgrades. So in the end, the validators and the DAO are really the kind of last line of defense here. And it's really important to have multiple um, levels of verification before kind of passing a protocol upgrade. And the DAO is a part of that. And for context, we even have, because it's kind of an opt-in democracy and it's a lot of the governance is done off chain. We even have a constitution that we wrote that we're working on ratifying and yet also getting passed by the DAO, for example. So, um, so when I say we kind of sit in between, uh, uh, this company and government and even religion, it's really true in this respect. So, you ask about the kinds of proposals that we see. Most of it's related to economics today. Pocket is also a unique and novel economic experiment. And for me, one of the things I'm most proud of is seeing how the community has rallied around finding the right decision for the protocol. And generally, just everyone being, uh, agreeing in the direction and mostly disagreeing on the implementation. I'll be honest, it gets a little testy sometimes on the forums, but generally people have one thing I've really been proud of is everyone really treating each other with a large amount of respect and care for the future of the protocol, which is extremely exciting for me.
Yeah, fantastic. Always like to hear that things are democratized. Like I love a nice healthy DAO. Um, so one question that I have, like recently, there's been a pretty controversial event taking place, like regarding the sanctions surrounding Tornado Cash. I was just curious as to what your thoughts are on that event.
Yeah. Um, as the event itself, I think it's a general overreach of our government. To be completely honest, um, I think it's a misunderstanding of the technology and the tools versus the people. These sorts of things have happened in the past, and it takes consistent effort, particularly from those of us who live in the jurisdictions where these things happen, to really kind of fight against it, right? So um, it is what it is. It's one of these situations where, as a U.S. company, for example, we need to comply with those regulations. But the nice part is that we're building this, it's really truly 0 to 1 invention, and um, really excited to be able to, one, fight against it, and two, be able to provide the technology for anyone to be able to participate in it, right? I think it's really woken crypto up. I think this is definitely the first time that something like this or of this nature happens, and frankly, I'm really excited for um, uh, really the rallying cry that this has created for lots of people, not only in our position but outside of the industry as well, and seeing where things might go.
Yeah, I believe that oftentimes things get worse before they get better, and to me, it sounds like you have a pretty optimistic outlook on this. Would that be correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, man, I mean, this technology has been here for what, 12 years, right? There's so many things that need to be figured out on so many different vectors, um, and um, the fact that 12 years in, so soon, we're kind of already seeing things like this, really just highlights the potential impact of this technology. And frankly, I just think that um, this just increasingly ostracizes people from kind of the status quo, or even institutions, and will continue to drive people to Web3 for as individuals start to get more and more affected with things like this. I still think that we should definitely be not be supporting criminals or anything like that at a high level, but nonetheless, these are tools. I can I can build I can have a hammer, right, and build a house, or hit someone outside the head with it, right, and it's really not the hammer's fault in this respect. So I think we're really learning what it means to build these things in not only the jurisdictions but on the internet today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty wild that in the past 12 or so years that you know a $2 trillion like market was created from scratch, like talking about the crypto space as a whole. I know it's down quite a bit from that right now, but yeah, it's like a absolutely phenomenal feat. And yeah, definitely don't want to be supporting criminals, but at the same time, I think like a lot of people would argue that a lot of the stuff that happens in traditional finance, if you were to put it on chain, like people would view it as pretty borderline criminal. But yeah, definitely like a lot of innovation in what we're doing and lots of global impact. So yeah, it's a really exciting space to be a part of. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and I would agree with that, right? And it's just uh, 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 you know, just the nature of new technology, man. But the fact that we've done so much in just 12 years is just hugely inspiring, and this just really highlights how much more we need to do, right? I think a big reason why a lot of us are in this space is to create a more fair environment for everyone, right? And when you say that we built, a $1 to $2 trillion industry over the course of 12 years, it's because it's fair. I mean, it's a bit the Wild West, but anyone, regardless of who you are, where you're from, can come in and contribute, right? And just because it starts in the digital doesn't mean that it can't be translated into real life or the life of or the world of atoms, right? Versus bits, and that for me is probably the most exciting thing because when I talk about Pocket or blockchains being coordination technologies, and Pocket specifically being a kind of a supranational entity, we now have the opportunity to coordinate all this value and all these people across very um, focused efforts, right? And that for me is truly world changing, and we're just so early in it. It's just so incredibly early.
Jeez, I'm getting chills in my spine. I don't think I could have said that any better myself. So really appreciate that. And I think that it's safe to say that you guys are um, positioning yourselves. Well, you're already positioned really well for the future of everything that's to come. Like you're able to support virtually any blockchain. So that's really exciting. I feel like we've done like a really good general overview of practically anything or practically everything. I'm wondering if like I don't know, there's any other like key points that you want to touch on that we haven't already.
Yeah, this is pretty expansive, to be honest. You know, I would say that yeah, if you're a developer and you're especially building Polygon, let us know. We got a couple people out here on this call, like Alberto and Hannah, part of the team, that would love to talk to you. But yeah, I think I can't think of anything that we haven't covered already. So appreciate the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been phenomenal having you here today as a guest and learning more about Pocket. I've dropped several links in the chat. So I got your website, your Twitter, Discord, your WeChat. Don't see a lot of projects with WeChat, so that was cool to see. And then Telegram. So I believe those would probably be all the best places to follow up with you guys if anyone has any questions or simply wants to get involved.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'd
Fantastic.
also recommend I'd also recommend taking a look at our forums as well, where a lot of the proposals and governance happens as well.
Yeah, most definitely. That's a great idea to do. It's always good to get involved with the DAO and the forums. Oh, I do see a message coming in here. Oh, it's Frankie dropping a rocket emoji. Thank you, Frankie. Appreciate you, man. Um, Pocket rockets, he says. Great, love it.
It's a great NFT project within our ecosystem. Shout out Pocket Rockets.
All right, awesome. Um, okay, well, I don't have any more questions for you, so I suppose we can wrap things up now and encourage everyone to follow up with Pocket. Check out the links in the chat, and thank you so much for coming out today, Michael.
Fantastic, and yeah, great for having me. This is great.
Yeah, it was amazing. Really enjoyed having you, and thank you so much to everybody for coming out and tuning in today. It's been a really enjoyable time, and hope you all have a fantastic day. All right, bye everybody.